The numbers on the screen match the numbers in your hand 6 times in a row, and you check a 7th time because your brain refuses to accept what your eyes are telling it. $22 million. You're sitting on your couch at 11:40 on a Tuesday night, and your first genuine thought isn't about money at all. It's a flash of pure animal panic. Where is this ticket right now, and is it safe? Your hands are shaking in a way that has nothing to do with cold. You check the numbers an 8th time, then physically get up and pace the length of your small living room twice. Phone still gripped in one hand, ticket in the other, before you manage to set both down long enough to think clearly for even a few seconds. You get up and put it in a drawer. Then, you take it back out and put it in a fireproof lockbox you don't actually own yet. So you drive to a 24-hour store at midnight and buy one, and you photograph the ticket from 6 angles on your phone before locking it inside. You do not post anything. You do not text anyone. You sit in your kitchen at 1 a.m., staring at a lockbox, understanding for the first time that the next few weeks matter more than almost any other few weeks of your life, and that the thing you're supposed to do right now is nothing at all. Most states give you between 90 days and a full year to claim a prize like this. You have time you don't feel like you have. Every instinct in your body wants to tell someone, anyone, immediately, and every piece of research you do over the following 2 days tells you the exact opposite. You learn a phrase that becomes your entire strategy for the next month. Buying time, not spending money. Buying time to think clearly before a single dollar moves anywhere. You don't tell your parents. You don't tell your best friend. You don't tell your sister, who you talk to almost every day. And the not telling feels like a betrayal, even though you know, rationally, it's the opposite. You've read enough by now to know that the moment people learn a specific number, they stop seeing you and start seeing the number. You're not ready for that yet. You're not sure you'll ever be fully ready for it. The first actual professional you call isn't a financial advisor. It's an attorney, specifically one who's handled lottery winnings before, which turns out to be a narrower specialty than you expected. She asks you almost nothing about what you want to buy. She asks about your state's disclosure laws, whether a trust structure is available where you bought the ticket, and whether you've told anyone yet. You tell her no, and she says, plainly, good, keep it that way a little longer. She explains that in a majority of states now, you can claim through a trust instead of your own name. A generic legal entity becomes the public-facing winner instead of you. And while the Lottery Commission still knows exactly who you are for tax purposes, your name never has to appear in a news article, a public records request, or a stranger's search results. You spend a full week just setting this up before you claim anything. A blind trust, drafted properly, with you as the beneficiary, but not the visible face of it. It costs you a few $1,000s in legal fees. It is, without question, the best few $1,000s you will spend during this entire process. During that week, you almost make your first real mistake. A local news reporter, tipped off by someone at the store where you bought the ticket, calls the number listed on your old business card, left behind months ago at a community event you barely remember attending. She's fishing, not confirming anything, but she's close enough that your hands shake taking notes on the call. You don't answer her questions. You don't confirm or deny anything. You hang up and call your attorney immediately, and she tells you, calmly, that this exact scenario is precisely why the trust needs to be finished before you claim, not after. You finish the paperwork 2 days faster than planned. You claim the ticket through the trust on a Thursday morning, almost 3 weeks after that first Tuesday night, in a quiet back office, instead of the press conference photo you'd half expected from movies. The lump sum, after the state's cash value discount, comes to just over $12 million. After federal and state taxes, the number that actually lands in the trust's account is closer to $7 million. You stare at that number for a long time. It is somehow both an enormous amount of money and considerably smaller than the headline that started this entire process. You still haven't told anyone. Your attorney's advice on this point is oddly specific. If and when you do tell family, do it once in person with a plan already decided, not as a live negotiation happening in real time while everyone in the room reacts. You start to understand why. Money that arrives with no plan attached becomes a plan other people write for you, usually loudly, usually all at once. You hire a fee-only financial advisor next, someone who charges a flat rate instead of taking a percentage of your assets, specifically because your attorney warns you that windfalls attract a specific kind of advisor who smells a large, financially inexperienced new client and prices accordingly. You interview 4 of them. 3 spend the meeting describing aggressive investment strategies before asking a single question about your actual goals. The 4th spends 40 minutes just asking questions and doesn't pitch you anything. You hire her. One of the 3 you turn down calls back twice more over the following weeks, increasingly persistent, describing a real estate fund with returns that sound, even to your untrained ear, slightly too clean to be entirely honest. You mention it to your attorney almost in passing, and her tone sharpens immediately. She tells you this exact pattern, an aggressive pitch chasing a known windfall, is precisely the profile of the scams she's seen wreck other clients in the same position. You block the number. You feel, afterward, a strange gratitude for an instinct you didn't know you had a month earlier, the ability to recognize a pitch that was engineered specifically for someone in your situation rather than for you as a person. Together, you build something that feels almost anticlimactic after 3 weeks of tension. A plan where most of the money stays invested conservatively, untouched, while a much smaller portion, still a genuinely large number, gets set aside as a spending account for the next 2 years. You don't quit your job. This decision alone puts you ahead of a huge percentage of winners, and you don't fully understand why until your advisor explains it plainly. Quitting immediately removes your income, your structure, your daily identity, and your health insurance all at once. While the new pile of money is still an abstraction you haven't lived with long enough to trust your own judgment about. You read, during this stretch, statistics that genuinely unsettle you. Roughly 70% of lottery winners face financial trouble within 7 years of their win, with bankruptcy filings clustering heavily around the 3 to 5 year mark, the point where the money finally runs out faster than anyone expected. You read about winners who bought homes for extended family, funded businesses for people they barely knew, upgraded their own lifestyle permanently within months, and were functionally broke again before the decade ended. The pattern in every story is almost identical. The money felt unlimited right up until, very suddenly, it wasn't. You read one story in particular that stays with you longer than the rest. A winner who quit his job the same week he claimed his prize, bought a house within a month, and was filing for bankruptcy inside of 5 years after a business venture failed and a divorce split what remained of the principal in half. You don't know this man, you'll never meet him, but you recognize uncomfortably the exact emotional logic that must have led to each individual decision, since none of them, read one at a time, sound obviously reckless. Quitting a stressful job felt reasonable. Buying a house felt reasonable. Backing a friend's business felt generous, not foolish. It was only the accumulation, decision stacked on decision with no single moment of reckoning, that quietly built the collapse. You understand, reading this, that the actual danger was never going to be one single bad decision. It was going to be 100 reasonable feeling decisions that each quietly assumed the well was bottomless. 6 weeks after that Tuesday night, you finally tell your parents. Not your sister yet, not your friends, just your parents in person at their kitchen table with your advisor's basic framework already decided before you say a word. You watch your father's face do something complicated, pride and shock and something that might be worry, all at once. Your mother cries. Neither of them asks for anything, which you're grateful for, though you also know, quietly, that the asking will come eventually, from somewhere, even if not from them. You tell them you're not buying a mansion. You tell them you're not quitting your job yet. You watch your father's expression shift slightly at that second part, somewhere between relief and confusion, like he expected the opposite and doesn't quite know what to do with a version of this story that isn't reckless. Your mother asks, carefully, almost apologetically, about your sister's mortgage, the one she's mentioned struggling with a few times over the past year. It's not a demand, it's barely even a request, but you feel the shape of every future version of this same question arriving in that one sentence, and you understand, for the first time, with real weight instead of abstract worry, why your attorney kept repeating the phrase, have a framework before you tell anyone. You tell your mother you'll think about how to help, genuinely meaning it, but you don't commit to a number at the table. You've learned enough in 6 weeks to know that an emotional yes in the moment can turn into a number you can't actually sustain once 10 more people ask the same kind of question. Word gets out anyway, the way it always does, not from you, but from a cousin your sister mentioned it to in confidence, who mentioned it to someone else. Within 2 months, people you haven't spoken to in a decade are messaging you. A former coworker asks, half joking, half not, if you're hiring. A distant relative asks for help with a medical bill that turns out, on closer inspection, to not entirely add up. You say no to some of it, you say yes to a few things, carefully, from the spending account, not the principal, and you notice how differently a yes feels when it comes from a defined bucket instead of an infinite one. The hardest no comes from someone you actually love, not a distant cousin chasing a number. A close friend, genuinely struggling, asks you to fund a business idea he's been talking about for years, one you privately think is undercooked and underfunded even by his own numbers. You say no, not to the friendship, just to the specific ask, and you watch something shift between you that doesn't fully repair for months. Your advisor had warned you this exact scenario was coming, in some form, from someone. Knowing it was coming doesn't make it hurt less when it actually does. You buy a modestly nicer car. Not the car every article about lottery winners describes, the exotic status symbol bought within the first month, just a reliable, comfortable upgrade from the one that had 140,000 miles on it. You wait almost a year before making any decision about housing at all, living in the same apartment through the entire first 12 months, mostly because your advisor's advice keeps echoing in your head. Nothing has to happen fast. The money isn't going anywhere if you don't move it somewhere reckless. At the 1-year mark, you finally do buy a house, but a specific, deliberate kind of house, comfortably upgraded from your old life, not a monument to the new one. Your advisor runs the numbers with you first, what this purchase actually costs across taxes, maintenance, and insurance annually, and whether the number still leaves the bulk of the trust's principal untouched and growing. It does, comfortably. You sign the papers feeling something closer to relief than triumph. You think, standing in the empty living room of the new house for the first time, about every story you read during those first unsettled weeks. The burned-through fortunes, the family businesses funded and failed, the bankruptcy filings clustering at year 3, year 4, year 5. You think about how none of those people believed, at the start, that they'd end up as a statistic in someone else's cautionary article. Neither, you're fairly sure, did you, before you started reading. 2 years out, you're still working, though fewer hours now, a negotiated arrangement your employer agreed to once you explained you weren't quitting outright, just recalibrating. your trust's principal has actually grown slightly, despite 2 years of living expenses, a house, a car, and the handful of people you've quietly helped without turning it into an open invitation. You haven't told most of your extended family the real number, and you probably never will. You've learned that the specific figure matters far less to people than the fact that a figure exists at all. You do eventually help your sister with her mortgage, not in the emotional, unplanned way your mother first raised it at the kitchen table, but as a deliberate line item your advisor helped you build into the second year's spending plan, sized so it doesn't touch the trust's principal and doesn't require you to explain the exact math behind the number to anyone. Your sister cries when you tell her, differently than your mother did that first day, quieter. She asks if this means you're rich now, in the careful, half-joking way people ask when they actually want a real answer. You tell her you're financially secure, which is true, and leave it there, which is also, you've come to understand, a form of honesty rather than evasion. You think some nights about that lockbox you bought at midnight from a 24-hour store, driving through empty streets with a piece of paper worth more than you'd earned in a decade, more scared of losing it than excited about having it. That fear, it turns out, wasn't panic. It was the first accurate instinct you had about the entire situation, that the danger was never really about protecting the ticket. It was about protecting the version of yourself who hadn't yet had time to think clearly. From every decision the newly rich version of you would otherwise have made in a hurry.